In the early summer of 1960, Finland was a quiet place, a country still recovering from the war where crime was rare and life moved slowly. June brought long days, warm air, and the promise of adventure. And for 4 Finnish teenagers, it brought something more: freedom. A chance to spend a warm weekend camping by the still waters of Lake Bodom. But by the time the sun rose on June 5th, that quiet shoreline would become the scene of one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in Finnish history. A brutal mystery that still haunts the country more than 6 decades later. On Saturday, June 4th, 1960, 4 friends rode their motorcycles to the picturesque shores of Lake Bodom. 15-year-olds Maila Björklund and Anja Maki were joined by their boyfriends, both 18, Seppo Antero Boisman and Nils Wilhelm Gustafsson. They pitched a single tent close to the lake's edge, a peaceful stretch of land near Espoo's Oita Manor. The teens spent the evening talking, swimming, laughing, and enjoying the early days of summer break. Nothing about the night felt dangerous. In fact, it felt safe, almost idyllic. But sometime between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m., while the 4 slept inside their tent, everything changed. What happened in those early morning hours has never been fully understood. What is known is this: an unknown assailant approached the canvas tent quietly, and instead of entering, began stabbing and bludgeoning the teenagers through the walls of the tent itself. Knife wounds tore through the thin fabric. A heavy blunt object, possibly a stone, struck their heads. The tent collapsed in the chaos. Inside that dark, confined space, 3 of the teens were slaughtered. Maila Björklund, who had been lying closest to the attacker's side of the tent, suffered the worst injuries of all. She was stabbed multiple times after death and was found partially undressed, lying atop the collapsed tent. Anja Maki and Seppo Boisman were also killed with a mix of stabbing and blunt force trauma. Only Nils Gustafsson survived, found outside the tent with his jaw smashed, multiple facial fractures, and stab wounds. According to him, he caught only a glimpse of the attacker, a figure dressed in black, with glowing red eyes. It was a detail investigators would never be able to explain. At around 6 a.m., a group of young birdwatchers walked by the camp area and reported something strange. They saw the tent collapsed, and they saw a blond man walking away from the scene. Whether he was the killer, a passerby, or something else, remains unknown. Hours later, around 11 a.m., a carpenter named Esko Oiva Johansson discovered the grisly scene and alerted police. Officers arrived at noon. What happened next would sabotage the investigation for decades. Police in 1960 were not prepared for a crime like this, and the mistakes started instantly. The site was never properly secured. Officers and curious locals walked through the grass, stepped over bloodstains, touched items, and unknowingly contaminated almost every piece of potential evidence. Soldiers were even brought in to search the surrounding woods, trampling through areas where the killer might have left clues. Even worse, several important objects were never found. The murder weapons, for example, disappeared completely. Some personal items were later discovered 500 meters away, including Gustafsson's shoes, partially hidden, suggesting the killer may have intentionally scattered things. The one clear fact investigators could agree on: the attacker struck from outside the tent, making the murders even more calculated and more mysterious. Over the decades, the Lake Bodom murders sparked countless theories, but 3 suspects became central to public fascination. To locals, Carl Valdemar Gillström was the most obvious suspect. He owned a nearby kiosk and was known for aggressive behavior, cutting down tents, throwing rocks, and screaming at campers to leave his area. Multiple locals claimed he confessed to the murders while drunk. Others said they saw him returning from the lake that morning, but were too afraid to report it. In 1969, Gillström drowned in Lake Bodom in what was believed to be a suicide. Still, police could never prove anything. His supposed confessions were dismissed as the ramblings of a disturbed man. Another name repeatedly connected to the case was Hans Assmann, a German-born man living just a few kilometers away. Assmann had a bizarre reputation, rumors of Nazi ties, a history of violence, and connections to several unresolved crimes. On the morning after the murders, he arrived at a Helsinki hospital with blood on his clothes and dirt under his nails. But when questioned, he acted erratically, pretended to collapse, and refused to explain anything. Shockingly, the police released him. Years later, Assman allegedly confessed to the murders on his deathbed. Still, he had an alibi for that night, and investigators refused to reopen the case. In the mid-1960s, a violent young criminal named Pentti Soininen told a fellow inmate he committed the murders. But there was one problem. He was 14 years old at the time. Could a 14-year-old overpower 4 teens, beating and stabbing 3 to death? Most experts say no. His confession was dismissed. For nearly 44 years, the case went cold. Then, in 2004, the Finnish police announced an arrest. The suspect was none other than Niels Gustafsson, the lone survivor. Investigators claimed new forensic technology could finally explain what happened that night. According to the prosecution, Gustafsson had gotten into a drunken fight with his friend Seppo, lost the fight, snapped in a rage, killed all 3 of the others, hid his own shoes 500 meters away, then deliberately injured himself before passing out. Their key piece of evidence: his shoes had the victim's blood on them, but not his. Prosecutors argued this meant he put the shoes on after killing the others, then removed them before staging the scene. The trial began in August 2005 and shocked Finland. Could the quiet 18-year-old from 1960 really be a triple murderer? After weeks of testimony, the court delivered its decision. Niels Gustafsson was acquitted. The evidence was inconclusive. The timeline didn't fully make sense, and his injuries, especially the facial fractures, were too severe for experts to doubt that he could have inflicted them on himself. With the verdict, the case slipped back into silence. Gustafsson received compensation for the psychological damage caused by the long investigation and lived the rest of his life outside the public eye. But the truth of what happened at Lake Bodom remains trapped somewhere between speculation and legend. Over 60 years later, the Lake Bodom murders remain one of Finland's darkest mysteries. 4 teenagers went to a lake to enjoy a perfect summer night. 3 never made it home. The killer, whether a stranger in the night, a local with a temper, a mysterious outsider, or something far more complicated, has never been identified. The tent is long gone. The trees have grown. The lake is quiet again. But every June, the story resurfaces, chilling, brutal, and unsolved. A reminder that sometimes the most terrifying killers are the ones we never see. If you found this story compelling and want more deep dives into the minds of criminals and other unforgettable cases, don't forget to like and subscribe. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.